Hello and welcome. I'm Regina McCann-Hess, President of Forge Wealth Management, and we are happy to have you here on our Women in Wealth series. Today, I have a new and old friend, Annmarie. We will not tell you how long we have known each other because we, as women, we just don't do that. Annmarie, can you tell us who you are, what you do, and what you love about what you do?
So it's wonderful to see you, Regina, and so glad that we got reconnected. And you're right, I don't want to think about how long we've known each other, but I'm excited to be here. And I am in the trade financial services, what we would call a wholesaler. And I work for a major investment firm. And I go out and I work with financial advisors such as yourself in what we call the wire channel and also the independent channel, representing the funds of the fund family that I work with. And what I love about my job is I get to meet great people like you. I'm one of the fortunate individuals that pre-COVID, I would be out and about driving maybe 200-300 miles a day to visit clients. And I love it. I get to hear interesting stories every day. And I learn about the clients that the advisors are managing their money, their hopes and dreams. And I wake up every day and I can't wait to see what's going to come.
That's awesome. That is awesome. And your energy precedes you. Like before you even walk into the room, your energy comes in. That's how much energy you bring. I love it. Love it. And still
You're,
all these years later, it's still like, boom, it's here. That's
well,
awesome.
you're kind to say that. Sometimes I met somebody one day and they just said, this cannot even be possible. But you have this energy, and I'm just happy to be walking on the earth.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Now, I know we decided not to disclose how long we've known each other, but I will say that we both work in a very male dominated industry. It's about 85% male on my side. And it was that way a long time ago when I first started in the industry. And it's still the same now. But I will tell you, as being in that industry, it was rare for me to find another fellow female advisor. It was even more rare for me to run into a female wholesaler. So, I mean, I ask this question a lot, but to you, it's like handing you a loaded gun. Like, what are some of the challenges that you have faced as a professional woman?
Well, you're absolutely right. And I mean, I will put it in context, but I'll just preface it by saying in August, I'll celebrate my 35th year in this business. But please, to everybody watching, I started when I was two.
Yep, absolutely. Right out the gate.
Right. And I mean, it was not uncommon. Me and 100 men, me and 50 men. The one thing I will say is that I've been in the mutual fund business my entire career, and I was very fortunate very early on to get involved in the retirement department.
Mm.
And as a result, the laws were changing. IRAs no longer became deductible. 401ks were becoming more prevalent. And I was fortunate to learn a lot about them. That as I was going in to call on the clients, I had something that they needed, knowledge. And I do want to say that I think that that may have been something that helped me, that I would be welcomed as long as I knew it. I mean, I made sure I knew my material. If I didn't know the answer, I was very quick to say, I'm going to have to check on that. Because as you know, with retirement plans and is something deductible or not in taxes, you don't want it to get wrong. And we're not giving tax advice,
Never.
but we encouraging somebody to put money into a certain type of a plan. You just want to make sure that you're giving the right information. So I met an advisor one day and he called me on a Friday night and he was meeting with a client on Saturday. And he said, cannot believe I'm bothering you at this hour. But I picked up the phone and he said, I have this question. I gave him the answer. And I always remember that because the next time I was in the office, he made a comment to the other financial advisors saying, boy, she knows her stuff. You got to work with her.
That's awesome.
That's kind of a long-winded answer to your question, but I'm grateful for that opportunity that I was able to still represent my mutual funds, but I was able to piggyback and learn this fabulous information, which I've kept with me all these years. Because as you know, when you meet with a client, probably the first thing they say to you is, am I going to outlive my money? Do I have enough money? Am I going to be secure?
Right, 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 right. And I will tell you that your experience is well known within the community because you have added so much value to what we do, so much to the point where we hadn't seen each other in years. And your name popped up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Annmarie Woods. Like the impression you left upon me, it was immediate as soon as I saw your name. And it's just like, oh my gosh, Annmarie Woods, I have to reach out. I have to, check in with her, see how she's doing, see what she's up to. Like, so I'm sure that's just me, and multiply that by the amount of people that you have met along the years in all the different offices that you visit.
Oh,
Very
you're
impressive.
kind to say that. And when you reached out, it was as if no time had passed. It stood still.
Well, I was like, she probably not going to remember me, but I can never forget Annmarie Woods. But you were kind too. You're like, oh yeah, good old days.
Oh, absolutely.
Ah, yeah. Yeah. So, and the other thing is, as a working mom, especially with all the travel you have to do with your type of job, how did you juggle all that? That is like, whoo, big time stars on your chart.
Yeah. And you know what? As I've often said to people, you just do it.
Yeah.
Your kids are your priority. They're my priority. I would make it work. I'm very, very fortunate that my parents lived near me, and my mother-in-law. When I've been divorced, it'll be 16 years. My youngest was 4. My
Oh,
children were 4, 6, and 10 when I got divorced. We split custody 50-50. And it is kind of funny. I've never really said this in public, but at the time, my ex-husband had said, you're not going to be able to do it. Well, don't ever say that to me.
no, nope. That's a challenge. Come on.
So I worked really hard, and we had a very unorthodox kind of schedule. We did 2 days and then every other weekend. My children were so young, I didn't want to not see them for a week,
Yeah.
even though
Yeah.
we lived in the same town and
Mhm.
we were at outings. But the days that my children weren't under my roof, I worked like the Dickens. And if I needed to travel, those were the days. And then when they were home, I would try to juggle my territory coverage those days that I could be home in time for dinner. And I had wonderful, wonderful people that I could call on in a pinch. I couldn't have done it without them. And then the other part to that is that at work, I really, I knew if I hit my goals and I did what was supposed to be my job, they're going to give me flexibility.
Yeah.
And that's why I aim to be a top producer but not sacrificing my children. And I look back now, my children are soon to be 26, 22, and 20. And I have a fabulous relationship with them, all of them. And they have incredible respect for what I do. But you make it work. If I thought about it, I
Mm.
probably would have heart palpitations
Oh
and
yeah.
get frozen in my feet.
Yeah. It's overwhelming thinking, knowing the amount of travel you had to do, and knowing all the work that you did before you came to visit our offices. And then adding the mom, like before you left your house, you already did your first job, then we're your second job, and you go home to your third job again, which is your kids again. And it's just like you jumble all that, like it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming.
Absolutely.
Kudos to you, my friend. Kudos.
Well,
Awesome.
when I leave this earth, as much as I love being a wholesaler and love having the opportunity to work, and the epitaph hopefully will be she was a great mom, daughter, sister, friend, and then a wholesaler.
Yeah.
So I've always tried to keep the priorities straight.
Smart, smart woman, smart woman. Yeah, it's hard to do sometimes, but you have your goals and you have your priorities straight. So good for you. That's awesome. So I know we have been living through this crazy thing called a pandemic, and your job is completely hands-on. So obviously you had to do some major pivoting. Tell us about that.
Well, I have become proficient at Zoom, webinar, Skype, uh, Microsoft Teams. You name the technology, and I wanted to learn it.
Yeah.
That, and to your point, as I mentioned earlier, I mean, my day would start, get in the car and go see somebody, whether it's meet for breakfast and then meetings in an office, out for lunch, back to the office to meet with people, possibly a dinner, a lot of face-to-face interaction. And to your point, I mean, it's hard to believe we're almost coming up to that day next week where we went on lockdown pretty much through the country, especially in our area. I mean, the Metro Philadelphia up to Boston, we really were impacted. And the next best thing, how to be there, embracing technology. Secondly, was just calling people. And it wasn't even talking about the market, because as you know, March was very tumultuous,
Little tough.
very, very tough. I mean, it was, seeing the downward trend in the market. And you're, really my job then was just to listen and, how are you doing? Is there something you can do? I did a lot. I'm a huge fan, as you know, of the power of the handwritten note.
Mm-hmm.
And every day, I do not let the day go by without writing a note. And some days it can be 5 or 6. And I wrote a lot of notes. I went in and I read people's bios, my clients' bios, and just to make sure I really knew them. If they mentioned a sport they liked, I sent a book. If they mentioned something that they liked that might be on TV, I sent that. If they said they liked photography, for one, AAA had in February of each year, they announced the winners of their photography contest. I sent that out. I tried to make it as personal as I could, because that's what we were going through. And maybe somebody wasn't there to do it. I knew the time would come again to get re-engaged from the investment side. But initially it was, let's get through this craziness. And then, I mean, when you look at the market, reflect on what happened after March, I wouldn't have been able to predict that.
No, no, that was, yeah. I was like, what just happened? It's like whiplash. We all had whiplash.
Yes.
Whoa, whoa. No, we were very happy that it went back very quickly, but still it's like, did that just happen?
Right, right.
Very
Because
grateful that it did, but yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. But no, the people, we always say, don't have that quick trigger finger, but some people did liquidate. I
Mm,
mean, as many of us thought the world was coming to an end, but I don't think there were too many people running out betting that we would have as fabulous a year as we did.
no.
So
No.
it was, you had to find that fine line.
Right.
And I do believe as women, we're very empathetic. We can read and have a nice way about trying to reach out, but also when you need to be, focused, you can, but also just take showing that you care.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you're right. Definitely the empathy that we have definitely helps. I was also making those same phone calls that you were making, but I was making them to my clients, and I didn't really, nobody really cared. Well, they did care, but it's just like you didn't call to say, oh, the stock market's up or down. They're like, how are you? Are you
Right.
okay? Do you need anything? Because some clients couldn't leave their houses, just due to their age, they were afraid to walk out the door. And just showing them that you care go goes on, so like it goes on forever for you, just being there for them and caring about them. And I think a lot of people were super afraid last year because you just didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, we all thought like, hey, we'll be out of here in 2 weeks, right? A year later we're still home. It's 2 weeks, just stay home for 2 weeks, everybody will be fine. And then, not the case. And so I think a lot of people were just plain scared about everything. So yeah, good for you that's how you decided to attack it. Fantastic. Fantastic. Now, I know you have been doing this for just a few years, and I hope you will still be doing this for several more years. But when you get to the point where you're like, okay, I'm ready for the next chapter in my life, how do you envision your retirement?
Well, I hope to do this for a long time. Have no plans to retire. And as long as they'll keep me, and
Yeah, and
that
we love you, and I
I
know your advisors love you, so we don't want you going anywhere. We're just going in the future machine.
absolutely. Well, I've always had an incredible love of American history. And I really credit that to my parents. I am originally from New Jersey. My formative years, I lived in Maryland. And whenever we would have a day off from school or on Sundays, my parents would take us on mystery rides.
Ooh.
And we would go to a battlefield or we would go to a museum. And then living in Maryland, New Jersey, and I went to school up in Boston. I mean, these are the heart area, and working in New York City, the heart of the period of the revolution, the colonists coming here. And as I said, I've been to all these museums. And what I really want to do, because I do a lot of public speaking in my job and telling stories, is I want to be a docent in a museum.
Fun.
Oh, Regina, I just think about it and I want to dress up if I can. I mean, I would probably be great in Williamsburg.
Perfect. Perfect. Did they make pink suits back then, though? You need your pink.
I know. I'm going to have to see if somebody has the ability to, dye it that way. But not last summer, the summer we just had, but 2019, I went down to Williamsburg for a couple of days. You always need a refresher.
Yeah.
And it was a hot summer day, and they were all in their period
Oof.
clothing. And my friend who knows that I want to do this was laughing and said, "Do you think you could put that on a 90-degree day?"
Ooh.
And I was
Melt.
laughing. I said,
Yeah.
"Oh, I think so."
Yeah. You'll be melting underneath, but yeah. Oh, I can
Yes.
totally see you doing that. Okay. And then when you do that, you have to let me know because I'm coming to listen. I gotta see
Oh,
that.
I would
You'll
love
be
to have you.
so amazing at it. That is a fun vision. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining me. You are a treasure, and I thank you for all that you do in our industry and in the name of women in our industry. So I'm very grateful to you.
Oh, thank you for having me. And I'm one of the lucky ones that found a great passion and in an industry that I've loved and continue to love, and opened up a door for me to meet you. And kudos to you for doing this, because I truly believe I've learned so much from people that have come before me and that I've met along the way and their stories. And for you to have an avenue like this for young girls and women that might be at a crossroads to be able to listen to, you're leading the charge.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I also want to thank everyone else for listening to us today. We hope you join us again. And again, I'm Regina McCann Hess, president of Forge Wealth Management. My website is forgewealth.com. And my social medias are Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Forge Wealth, and LinkedIn at Regina McCann Hess. Have a great day.